Hi there. You're listening to the Oklahoma OnStage podcast with Tim Jolly, your one-stop shop for all things theater in the great state of Oklahoma. We hope you enjoy the show.
Oklahoma on stage, the stories come alive. With drama, dance, and music, the arts always thrive. From center stage to backstage lore, Oklahoma on stage, there's always something more.
Welcome back, everybody, to Oklahoma on Stage. I'm Tim. I would normally say I'm your host, but today is a little bit different. Today, I'm sitting here in my living room on my couch. I have my mic all set up, and we're going to kind of look at things a little bit different today. Today is July 4th, but more importantly, today America turns 250 years old. And I'm not quite that old, but I've lived long enough to know that every journey, whether it's our nation's or one of our listeners or myself, it's built on stories. We talk a lot about that. Stories are the center of what we do in theater. I spent a lot of time on this podcast over the last little over a year now, talking to other people about their stories and their journeys. And so today, I wanted to take a few moments just to share a little bit of my journey. This isn't an interview. There's no guest, no curveballs, except for maybe one or two for me. But it's just a moment to reflect on theater, on life, on the stories that shaped me, and maybe the stories that shaped all of us. We'll see where this goes. So, if I could trace my journey back far enough anyway, it doesn't start on the stage. I didn't start on the stage. In fact, we looked at some old family videos, and there's some videos of me singing in the living room of my grandparents' house with a jump rope handle as a microphone and dancing and entertaining the family. And so I spent a lot of time as a young person entertaining people. That was kind of my thing. I was a class clown. I was the one that people laughed at. Not always because I was weird and different. That came later. But just because that's what I was doing. I was entertaining. I was just trying to make people laugh and have a good time. Then I said it was the fourth grade, was my first time stepping onto the stage. I played a toy soldier in our elementary school Christmas play. Funny thing about that story, though, we found out later on that my wife actually was in that same show, and we didn't know each other. We were actually, a grade apart. Her family had just moved to Oklahoma and were kind of in transition, and she just happened to be living across the street from the elementary school where I was going. She was in the school at the time that the program went on, and we didn't know about that until much, much later. When we were driving through Midwest City, of all places, and we happened to see the school, and she's like, yeah, I went to school there. And we kind of started comparing stories about when she was there, and come to find out we were in the same show. So it was kind of interesting. A little while, like a year or so later, I was involved with a staged production honoring our president, and I represented Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It was kind of an interesting little presentation that they did. So my first spark into theater didn't come until I was in high school. I didn't really see theater or anything like that when I was younger. And then I was in high school, and believe it was my freshman year in high school, as a matter of fact. We went to the drama department's production of, I believe it was Cinderella Wore Combat Boots as one act. And I watched that, and I just, not only did I develop a really big crush on the show, I take that back. I apologized. The show was actually that I saw that hooked me was Juvie. The Cinderella Wore Combat Boots was actually performed as a duet combat competition piece. But Juvie was a very interesting show as well. And as I sat there and I watched this show, and I'm seeing these people bring this story to life, and I'm thinking to myself that, I'm a storyteller. I didn't think storyteller was the word, but this is what I do, not necessarily on the stage, but this is what I do in my life is, I tell stories and I entertain and I make people laugh. I want to do this. I want to see what this is all about. Excuse me, I take a drink. So I checked that out, and I enrolled in speech and drama the next year. Got involved with that, and for the next 3 years in high school, I was a part of our drama department. I performed my first show ever on stage was a full length production in our high school gym. As I love to tell the young people today when I direct shows, like I grew up performing in a high school gym. But my first show in the high school gym was a production of Neil Simon's The Good Doctor, based on Anton Chekhov, and it was really a funny show. Was a lot of wide open space on this gym floor that we used for different pieces. The show is actually different vignettes, all brought together in one show. So it was a lot of fun. It was a good show. The next year, we did Little Footsteps as a one act, and we went to competition with that, and we competed with the OSSAA, the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activities Association, one act competition. And our school, that group, there were 4 main characters in the one act. All 4 of us won the all-star cast. It was the first time in history that had ever been done. And then we went on to state and didn't do as well in state, but we enjoyed the ride. It was a great show, a very touching show, and I loved that show. It still stays with me today. Then went on from there in competition, competing in different shows, or sorry, competing in different events for speech and debate tournaments. Got into acting that way, doing interpretations, doing duets, doing monologues, all that kind of stuff. I think my greatest time during that time was it was kind of split. Number one, I was competing in monologue. I had a great monologue at the time, and I was competing. I had competed at Norman High School, and which was a really, really tough tournament, and actually got first place for my monologue. Disappointing thing is my director at the time wouldn't let me take the monologue onto regionals to compete. He felt that monologue was kind of a crapshoot. You never knew what was going to happen, and so you're better off competing with other events that you're strong in. But I did go on to that year to go to state, competed at regionals, qualified with 3 events, and went to state and got 4th place in 2 of the events. One of the events didn't do quite as well, but so yeah, it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Graduated from McLeod High School, which is right between Oklahoma City and Shawnee, which is where I live now, and left there. Went on to college at Oklahoma A&M, Northeast Oklahoma A&M College. Sorry, Norseman, if I butchered that, but went to NEO as a theater education major. Kind of stayed that way for one semester, and then changed over to television production. Um, Mentor or teacher. The funny thing is, I don't remember the names of any of the teachers that I had when I was working in theater. Um, I know that Brian Hauk was the head of the theater department there, but my high school theater teacher who really kind of sparked theater for me was Randy Hemphill. And I know he's retired now, but I really learned a lot from him, but then went even further when I left. Um, of course, college was a whole other rocky road for me. I partied way too much, and parents kind of told me if that's how I was going to do things, I could pay for it myself. And so, just a little note for all of you young people out there: it took me 18 years to get a bachelor's degree, so don't ever give up. Well, that being said, um, was much later. I took a little break. It was not long after that that my wife and I got married in '95, and she had two children from a previous divorce, and then we had one together. Um, so we had little ones around the house, which for anybody that knows in community theater with little ones around, it's not real easy to do theater, and so we chose to take some time away from theater. It was the early 2000s. I think it was 2008, I believe, when my wife and I got back into theater. She stepped on stage first, and then I went behind the scenes. I really started embracing the technical side of things, and I did lights, and I did sound, and I did props, and did some set construction and design and all of that kind of stuff. And so, really kind of embraced the technical side of things. And you know, I, when I look at that, I didn't step back on stage until I believe it was uh 2012. I'm not exactly sure the year. I'd have to look back on that, but I stepped back on the stage after like a 20-year break, something like that. Um, and stepped in as Bob Yule in To Kill a Mockingbird, which was a fantastic time. It's all for me. It's always good to play the villain. I love it. But yeah, it was a great show. I think I learned through all of that I didn't choose theater. Theater chose me. As many people have said in the interviews during this podcast, um, that bug bites and it doesn't let go. And I don't think it ever let go of me or my wife. Um, but it was just kind of one of those things that it kind of stayed kind of on the back burner, but it was always whispering in the ear. And since we've come back in the early 2000s, we've never really left. Um, I was on stage for To Kill a Mockingbird, and then followed that up with The Crucible. Then did some stage managing and more tech. We moved away from Shawnee uh, due to a job that I had at the time, and went to another town and we got involved with theater there up in Cushing, Oklahoma. And my wife got involved on stage. Again, I was involved with tech and stage managing and all of that. Um, Another learning experience for both of us. We came back to Shawnee and hooked up with uh, the Shawnee Theater again, and yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride. Uh, I got to play, probably my first lead role in my entire career. I was 50 years old and got to play Captain Keller in The Miracle Worker. One of my favorite ensembles, one of my favorite families, I would say. We weren't really a cast, we were a family. And still are. We still are connected, I think. And not as well as we once were, but they're still family. So, yeah. So, looking at America, and I know I'm not going to get into politics or anything like that because that's not what this podcast is about. But when we look at America celebrating 250 years, I've been thinking about how theater and this country aren't really different. And I guess that's kind of showing, how so many of the shows and things nowadays are reaching into the political realm or the uh, culture of the country and all of that kind of stuff. But the big thing about it, when I say that, theater is a mirror. It reflects who we are, whether it be good, bad, the complicated, the hopeful. It's all there. And America has spent 250 years looking at itself through stories. And one thing about it, when you look back at the history of our country, theater has been there from the very beginning. Um, Theater houses were a part of the birth of our country. Were there in Boston. They were there in Philadelphia. They were all over the place as we spread west. We had performing parlors and saloons, and all of that was part of our country ever since the very beginning. And so theater is very, very important and very vital to America. Community theater is designed to be democracy in action. We have a hierarchy system, leadership, but I think more than that, it's designed to represent all of the people that are involved. And I try to, as a director, make sure that I'm collaborative and including the ideas and viewpoints of the people that are in my cast. I understand my vision is not the only vision. And I think that's really kind of how our nation was founded, on collaboration, on compromise, and on creativity. And the interesting thing is that every generation is rewriting the script. There's a we talk about it when you look at the generations, and each generation is a little bit different than the one that came before it. There's similarities. There's obviously connections between the two, but there's just something different. If you look back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, all four of those decades were completely different. They represented different things. The the culture was different. The people were different. But that's theater as well. It changes. The arts, I mean, that's just what it's all. The arts, whether it be this theater, whether it be media, whether it be photography or painting or singing or whatever, any of all the arts, they're part of America's heartbeat. See, we talk a lot about, even here on the podcast, that it goes back to the beginning of time with humans, that our history, who we are, was passed down through generations through storytelling. Probably one of the biggest examples of that were the Greeks. They were really the first ones to begin to uh, officially tell their histories through stories, through theater, through acting. Before that, and much like here in the United States before the colonial transition, and even later than that, the Native Americans, through their traditions and their history, their stories were told around a campfire, and that's how they passed on their stories. It's no different. Our cultures, innately in the basis of it, are very similar, and our stories are what make us who we are. Our stories are what keep our societies, keep our people going. And we need to remember that storytelling matters in any society or any country's identity, the stories matter. And I'm saying this to everyone that's listening. No matter where you are in your journey, if you are just even remotely interested in theater, all the way up to someone who's been, doing it professionally and this is your life, please understand and remember that what we do as storytellers is absolutely vital to this culture, this country's identity, and who we are as its people. So when you think about it, the stage is one of the most American places you can stand because it's where people come together to build something bigger than themselves. We go there, yes, to be entertained, yes, to escape life for a while, but we go there to tell stories, and we go there to tell not usually our stories, but someone else's story or some story that someone else has written. And we go there to take that story and to blow life into it and let it inflate and see what that is going to become. And that's what we do as artists. And I hope that we can learn that and continue to do that. So if you do theater long enough, you learn that every rehearsal teaches you something, even the ones that go off the rails. And if you podcast long enough, you learn that listening is an art form. And I strive to do the best I can in that realm of this podcast. Yes, I ask questions. I interact. But a lot of times, just like you listening, I am hearing that story for the very first time. And I am just as captivated and drawn into that person's story as you are. And I'm hoping that you are engaging from wherever you're listening to. And I really want to, with this organization, outside of just the recording, like to see more engagement, people sharing their stories, people talking about their experiences with theater, with the community, as a whole. Um, being on stage, I remember when I was younger, and I talked a little bit about this earlier about being weird and people laughed at me. Um, I was one of those that I didn't really fit into any group in high school. Um, Much earlier than that, yeah, I was just a goofy kid. Um, I was as went into junior high and puberty started hitting and I started growing. I was tall, I was skinny, I had glasses, I had pimples. I was a nerd for many, many years, and I still kind of am, and that's okay. I embrace it. It's not an insult to me, but I was that kid that you know I didn't belong with any group. I remember in high school you had the jocks, you had the preps, you had the band geeks and the drama nerds, and you had all of these things. And I didn't fit into any one of those. I mean, I wasn't a jock, that was for certain. Um, but I had friends that were jocks. I connected with them. Same as the preps. I knew several preps and was there right along with them. But my heart really was in the arts. I was a band nerd for many, many years. I was a drama nerd. I was, right in there with all of that. But it kind of helped shape me. And then as I got older, I started realizing that drama, theater, the stage really kind of helped me through so many stages of my life, through difficult times. Theater allowed me to explore a little bit of who I was. It allowed me to, one, to escape from some of those difficult times from the the tough times and all of that. It allowed me to do that, but it also allowed me to explore other people. It allowed me to experience other things outside of my own life. I remember in high school, my drama teacher told us that one of the best ways to develop characters and all that was to go. And back then, malls, shopping malls were still a really big thing. Some of them are still around and are still pretty big, but they're not as nothing like they used to be. Um, and he would say, if you really want to develop characters, you need to learn about people, and the best place to do that is to go and people watch. And I would do that from time to time, and I would go to the mall, and I would sit in the food court, and I would literally watch people as they went by, watch their behaviors, watch the things that they did, and how they interacted, and all of that. And I really enjoyed doing that, and I used that to help develop certain characters. And then, later on, I started really embracing the storyteller aspect of theater, and that we all have a story to tell. And though we are developing these characters that are in a completely different story other than our lives, part of us, part of ourselves goes into that character, and character becomes a part of us. We become a part of that character. And that's the way it should be. There needs to be a marriage there. Now, when the show is over, of course, you need to kind of separate yourself from that character. You can't live that way, but that's a whole other therapy session. But podcasting, man, I'm telling you, I never knew how much I would learn from this podcasting thing. Just the connecting with people, seeing the different places and where people come from. Uh, and you can, I mean, dive, even deeper into that, the culture that people come from, uh, the racial differences of people that are out there, the socioeconomic differences, just from the different places in Oklahoma, from downtown theaters in Tulsa and Oklahoma City to rural theaters, like uh, oh Red Carpet Community Theater that I was just at here recently, and Ponca Theater. All of these outlying areas, Fourth Street Theater in Tulsa, in Tuttle, all of these places that are more rural. It's still theater, but the culture is a little different, and I'm learning that. But there's something at the heart of all of that that is similar, that keeps us uh, connected. Um, Being in Oklahoma, we talk a lot about community theater. Being in Oklahoma, I have seen the best and the worst when it comes to community. I have seen some of the best come out of Oklahoma. I've seen this state and its people rise to occasions that have baffled the human mind. When we had the Murrah bombing, when we had the May 3rd tornado, when we had the tornado here in my town of Shawnee, people coming together, regardless of your status in life, regardless of what you've got going on, um, we came together. But then I have seen, as of late, some of the worst in people. Um, you know, Theater takes all kinds, and theater brings in all kinds. And I have seen, people just be ugly to each other in so many different places. I have seen um, just without a better word, a lot of hatred in the world, and in Oklahoma as well. And I think one of the things that has really strung a string in my heart over the last 6 months to a year is that I think one of the biggest things that is going to be our downfall as a culture, as a society, as a country, whatever you want to call it, has nothing to do with AI. I think in many cases, I think AI is being given a much broader footprint than what it really has. I think it's kind of like what people say so many times. I think the devil gets the short end of the stick sometimes because there's oftentimes it's not the devil that did it, it's us, but we blame the devil. And I think right now so many things are being blamed on AI or being pointed at AI or whatever. But I think ultimately, and what maybe why AI is getting such a spotlight or such a focus is really what is really hurting us as a society is the fact that we have forgotten our humanity. We have forgotten how to treat each other. We have forgotten how to that across the board, we are all far more similar than we are different. And we find the smallest little differences and we make them into huge issues. We make mountains out of molehills and we explode them and we go to literally without the best interpretation, we go to war over these small little issues. And I know to some people they're not necessarily small issues, but in the bigger picture, it's we are making more and more differences and more division than we are uniting, and it makes me sad, and it hurts, and it makes me angry at the same time. Um, my guests, man, I have seen some of the people that I consider to be friends now. I have seen people that listening to their stories have fought through so many things and been resilient, overcoming fires, overcoming storms, overcoming COVID, overcoming so many things just to keep the art going and just to keep theater alive. And I am so proud to be a part of the Oklahoma Community Theater family, just based on those things alone. And I think they're just amazing. And I am learning now, going as a director, that I think I am far better behind the scenes. I've thought this before. I'm far better behind the scenes than I am on the stage. I love acting. I love theater, regardless. But I am a storyteller above all, and I love being the one that's guiding the ship. I love bringing the vision and telling the story through the actions of these individuals that trust me enough to be a part of the show. And I'm really loving that. That's kind of what if you kind of notice a little bit of hoarseness or raspiness in my voice, it's because I'm going into Tech Week this next week for my second show directing as the lead director, and um, we've been outdoors and very spread out, which means I've been doing a lot of yelling, and so. But through all of that, I am loving every minute of it, and working with some really, really talented and amazing individuals of all ages in this show, and I'm really loving it. So, looking to the future, oh my goodness, looking to the future, I think a lot about what's next all the time. Not necessarily just for me, but for the artists coming up behind us, the next generation. What is theater going to look like? Specifically, what is Oklahoma community theater going to look like in 5, 10 years? I am hoping that I can have an impact in that, especially in the next 5 years. Um, but I look at some of these people, and again, being able to go and be a guest in the audience at the Kelly O'Hara Awards, the talent that was in that building, and not just on stage, but throughout the audience and all that. It's astounding to know that there is that much talent. And my encouragement is, it's much like we've often said about Little League and parents pushing their kids in Little League sports, the vast majority of those kids aren't going to go on to play in high school. And of those high school kids, there's a large number that aren't going to go to college in that sport. And from there, they're not very few go on to play professionally. Kind of the same thing in theater that, as much as we go to camps and as much as we do this and that in theater, the reality is that there's a large portion of those individuals, even in that room of the Kelly O'Hare Awards, that, yeah, may go on to college. But as I've talked with so many people, sometimes they realize theater wasn't for them when they got to college, or they just, with everything else, they just weren't able to do it. And other things took over and their journey just got sidelined and they went a different direction. And then, they have or others have dreams of going on to Hollywood or LA, and it just doesn't happen. And my encouragement to you, regardless of where you are on that spectrum, don't give up. Understand that even if you don't make it to Hollywood, if you don't make it to Broadway, theater is still there. Every dream that's up there in Broadway and out there in Hollywood begins in the grassroots of community theater and high school theater and college theater. Even if you leave college and it doesn't work and you can't continue in theater, don't give up. There's always a place in community theater. If I can help build spaces where people feel seen, heard, and valued, that's where I want to be. I want to look forward to that, whether that be me as a director on stage, putting forth art, whether that be being a cast member of a production, or whether that be right here on Oklahoma OnStage podcast. I want to be able to do that. I understand, no matter where I'm at right now, the curtain, for any of us, the curtain's not closing. It's rising on something new for all of us. And I want to be a part of whatever comes next. And I hope that you all will too. Now, before we leave, I want to do this kind of the same thing that I do with the guests that I have on the show. I want to wrap up our time with a little bit of some curtain call curveballs. And I had AI kind of toss some out at me, and I'm going to see what happens here. First question: what's a moment in your life that would make a perfect movie scene? Honestly, I really don't know. The best thing I can think of, a fairly dramatic moment, years ago, before my wife and I got married. I had been out with friends. A friend of mine had gotten married. We'd been on a multiple day bender of partying and all kinds of stuff. Hadn't slept much in several days. And my wife asked me if we could go talk. And so we were driving down the road. She was driving ahead of me and I was driving, and I fell asleep and drove my truck off into a 10-foot ditch. And thankfully the passenger window was rolled up because that's where my head hit. If it had been rolled up, my head would have gone into the rock wall and probably would have killed me. But so yeah, I mean, it's probably not movie worthy, but that's probably one of the biggest ones. If your younger self could see you now, what would he be most proud of? And I think the thing that I keep saying over and over again, I think young me would be most proud of the fact that I am telling stories, or at least helping to tell stories. And am I doing it the way that I want to do it? Am I making money at it? Am I a professional at it? No. But I'm doing it more for the joy of it than anything else. So I think you'd be proud of that. What's a tiny decision that accidentally changed your entire life? a couple of years ago, a little over 2 years ago now, I made the decision to step out of my comfort zone and just for producing art and being on stage and everything in Shawnee, and stepped into Oklahoma City. Ultimately, that was a big change. I was introduced to Storyteller Theater, Oklahoma City, which now I've been working with almost nonstop for the last 2 years. Met some wonderful people. And if I hadn't gone to Oklahoma City and gotten involved with theater up there, I wouldn't have had the conversation a little over a year ago, that led to starting an idea about a podcast for telling stories of theater, which became Oklahoma On Stage. So that was the decision that changed everything. If your life had a recurring music motif, what instrument would be playing it? I would probably dare to say either the trumpet or the saxophone. I'm a big fan of jazz music and blues music, and I love the saxophone. Just fits in with just about any style of music. So it would probably be the saxophone. Should have played role. What's a role you should have played, but have never played, but absolutely should have? Was Gus in Bus Stop. I was actually cast in that, and had to step out because I needed to get a job. I was in high school and I needed to get a job and couldn't do the work hours and the performance at the same time. And so I had to step out and do that. So that's really kind of me. And so I thank you guys for being a part of the Oklahoma Onstage family, the Oklahoma Community Theater family. I thank you guys for supporting this venture and all that we're doing. I thank you guys for the friendships that I have developed over the last year, a little more than a year. This has been a wonderful journey, and I am certainly not ready to hang it up yet. I'm looking forward to what's coming over the next, I don't know, 5 years or so. We'll just see where it goes. So thank you all for being a part of this. As America celebrates 250 years, I'm celebrating the stories that have shaped me, and the many stories that are still yet to come. Thank you all for being a part of the journey. Let's make sure that the curtain doesn't close. Let's keep it going. Let's keep the lights on. Let's keep the love of theater and the arts in the hearts of people everywhere we go. Let's touch the lives of people and let's tell their stories. Thank you all for being a part of this again. Thank you for your support for all of Oklahoma On Stage. But more importantly, above anything else, as I always say, continue to support the arts.
Oklahoma On Stage.